Please, Marcus, just let me go. The words barely left Emma's lips before his hand connected with her face again, the sharp crack echoing off the brick walls of the narrow alley behind Romano's Italian restaurant. She tasted copper, felt the warm trickle of blood from her split lip as she stumbled backward into a pile of trash bags. Let you go! Marcus's voice dripped with venom as he loomed over her, his once handsome features twisted into something ugly and unrecognizable. After what you did? After you embarrassed me in front of everyone at that charity gala? Emma's hands trembled as she tried to shield herself, her designer dress, the emerald one she'd saved 3 months to buy, now torn at the shoulder and stained with grime. I just talked to him. He's a colleague, Marcus. That's all. Don't lie to me! His voice rose to a roar, and Emma flinched as he grabbed a fistful of her honey-blonde hair, yanking her head back. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the rain that had started to fall harder now, soaking them both. I saw how you looked at him, how you smiled. You think I'm stupid? 3 years. 3 years she'd wasted with this man, watching him slowly transform from the charming investment banker she'd met at her best friend's wedding into this monster. The first time he'd pushed her had been 6 months ago. She'd made excuses. He was stressed. Work was overwhelming him. She could help him through it. But there was no helping Marcus. There was only surviving him. I'm done, Emma whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. We're done, Marcus. I'm leaving you. His laugh was cold, mirthless. You're not going anywhere. His grip tightened in her hair. You're mine, Emma. You'll always be. Remove your hand from the woman. Now. The voice cut through the night like a blade, deep, commanding, with an Italian accent that turned each word into something both elegant and deadly. Emma's eyes widened as a figure emerged from the shadows at the alley's entrance. He was tall, easily 6'3", with broad shoulders that filled out his obviously expensive black suit perfectly. Dark hair, slightly wet from the rain, was swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, and eyes so intensely gray they seemed to glow in the dim light from the street lamp. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, each step deliberate and purposeful. Marcus's hand loosened slightly in Emma's hair. This is none of your business, friend. Keep walking. The stranger's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I am many things, but I am not your friend. He stopped about 10 feet away, his hands casually in his pockets, but Emma could sense the coiled danger in his stance. And when I see a man putting his hands on a woman in such a manner, it becomes very much my business. Look, I don't know who you think you are, Marcus began. Dante, Valentino. The name seemed to suck the air from the alley. Emma watched as Marcus's face went pale, his hand dropping from her hair as if she'd suddenly caught fire. She'd heard that name before, whispered in the corners of her office, mentioned in hushed tones at high society parties. The Valentino family wasn't just wealthy, they were power itself in Boston. Old money, old ties, and rumors that swirled like smoke about their less-than-legal enterprises. Dante Valentino was the head of it all. Mr. Valentino, Marcus stammered, taking a step back from Emma. I didn't realize this is just a misunderstanding between my girlfriend and ex-girlfriend, Emma found herself saying, her voice stronger now despite her split lip. She pushed herself up from the ground, her legs shaking but holding. I'm not his anymore. Dante's eyes flickered to her, and for a moment Emma felt the full weight of his attention. It was intense, assessing, but not unkind. Then his gaze returned to Marcus, and the temperature in the alley seemed to drop 10 degrees. You heard the lady. Dante took another step forward. She is no longer yours. She never was yours, because women are not possessions. They are not things to be owned or controlled. Another step, and they are certainly not things to be beaten in alleyways like dogs. It won't happen again, Marcus said quickly, his voice high with fear. I swear, Mr. Valentino, I'll go. We'll forget this whole thing. Oh, you will go, Dante agreed, his voice soft and infinitely more dangerous for it. But first, you will apologize to the lady, on your knees." Emma's breath caught. Marcus's eyes widened. What? Did I stutter? Dante's hand emerged from his pocket, and Emma saw the glint of what might have been a gun beneath his jacket. He didn't draw it, didn't need to. The threat was clear. On your knees. Marcus dropped like his strings had been cut, his expensive slacks soaking in the dirty puddles. "I'm sorry," he gasped out, not even looking at Emma. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to her," Dante interrupted. "Look at her. Apologize to her like you mean it." Marcus's eyes finally met Emma's, and she saw genuine terror there. "Emma, I'm sorry. For everything. For tonight. For all of it. I'm sorry." Emma said nothing. What was there to say? Sorry didn't undo the bruises, the fear, the way she'd started flinching at sudden movements. Dante seemed to sense her silence spoke volumes. "Now run," he said softly to Marcus. "Run! And if I ever see you near this woman again, if I even hear your name in the same sentence as hers, I will not be so forgiving. Do you understand?" Marcus nodded frantically, scrambling to his feet. He cast one last look at Emma, filled with hatred now, the fear already morphing into resentment, before he bolted down the alley and disappeared around the corner. The silence that followed was broken only by the steady patter of rain. Emma stood there, soaking wet, bleeding, her dress ruined, staring at the man who had just saved her. "Thank you," she managed, her voice cracking. "You didn't have to." "Sit," Dante said, his voice gentler now. He shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. It was warm, smelled like expensive cologne and something else. Cedar, maybe, and smoke. "You are injured." "I'm fine," Emma lied automatically, the same lie she'd told herself 100 times before. But even as she said it, her knees buckled, and suddenly Dante was there, his arms around her, steadying her with surprising gentleness for a man who'd just threatened to kill someone. "You are not fine," he said firmly, guiding her to sit on a relatively clean shipping crate near the wall. "And lying about it helps no one, least of all yourself." He knelt in front of her, his eyes level with hers, and produced a crisp white handkerchief from his pocket. "May I?" Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. His touch was feather-light as he dabbed at her split lip, cleaning the blood away. His hands were steady, practiced, and Emma found herself wondering how many times he'd done this before, tended to wounds, cleaned up blood, though probably not under circumstances like these. "My car is just at the end of the alley," Dante said after a moment. "I will take you to a hospital. That lip should be looked at and—" "No," Emma said quickly. "No hospitals. They'll ask questions, file a report, and Marcus's father he's connected. A judge. He'll make it go away and make my life hell in the process." Dante's jaw tightened. "I see. Then I know a doctor. Discreet. She owes me a favor." He studied Emma's face, and she felt exposed under that penetrating gaze, like he could see every secret she'd ever kept. "You have somewhere safe to go?" The question made Emma's stomach drop. Her apartment was in Marcus's name. He'd insisted on it, said it was easier that way for taxes. Her parents were dead, gone 5 years now in a car accident. Her sister lived in California. Her best friend, Julie, was out of the country on her honeymoon. Emma's voice trailed off. She had nowhere. The realization hit her like a physical blow, and suddenly she couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They came in great, gasping sobs that shook her entire body. "I have nothing. I gave up my apartment when we moved in together. I don't... Shh," Dante murmured, and then he was pulling her against his chest, one hand cradling the back of her head. It should have felt strange, accepting comfort from a man she'd just met. A dangerous man, if the rumors were true. But his embrace felt safe, solid, like he was the only stable thing in a world that had just tilted sideways. "It will be all right. I will make sure of it." Emma stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dante's penthouse apartment, barely processing the stunning view of Boston's skyline. The doctor, a striking woman in her 40s named Dr. Chen, had come and gone, pronouncing Emma's lip injury minor, checking her for concussion, and leaving a small bottle of prescription-strength pain medication with strict instructions. Now Emma sat on the most comfortable leather sofa she'd ever experienced, wearing borrowed clothes, black silk pajamas that Dante had produced from somewhere, claiming they were from a guest room. They were too big, but they were clean and soft, and Emma had never been more grateful for anything in her life. Dante emerged from the kitchen carrying 2 mugs. "Hot chocolate," he announced, setting one on the glass coffee table in front of her. "With marshmallows. I find that tea is overrated in times of crisis." Despite everything, Emma felt her lips twitch in an almost smile, though the motion hurt. Hot chocolate. The Dante Valentino drinks hot chocolate. Is that so hard to believe? He settled into the armchair across from her, cradling his own mug. He'd changed too, now wearing dark slacks and a simple white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. "I may be many things, but I am still human." "Are you, though?" The question slipped out before Emma could stop it, and she immediately regretted it. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" But Dante was smiling, a real smile this time that reached his eyes and transformed his face from intimidating to devastatingly handsome. "No need to apologize. I know what people say about my family. Some of it is true. Some of it is—" He made a vague gesture with his hand. "Exaggerated. Which parts are true?" He studied her over the rim of his mug. "The parts that matter for tonight? I am a man who keeps his promises. I told you I would make sure you were safe, and I will. You may stay here as long as you need." "I can't," Emma started, but Dante held up a hand. "You can, and you will. This penthouse has 4 bedrooms. I use 1. The rest sit empty most of the time. There is no imposition." His expression grew serious. "And before you worry about what I might expect in return, let me be clear. I expect nothing. You have been through a trauma tonight. What you need is safety, rest, and time to figure out your next steps. That is all." Emma's throat tightened with emotion. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you being so kind to me? You don't even know me." Dante was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes distant, as if seeing something far away. "Because someone should have been kind to my mother," he finally said, his voice low. "When my father, my biological father, not the man who raised me, put his hands on her in anger, no one helped. No one intervened. She suffered in silence until my stepfather, the man I call Papa, found her and took her away from that life." He looked back at Emma, and there was something raw in his expression. "I was 5 years old. I remember very little of that time, but I remember her tears. I remember how she flinched at sudden movements, and I swore even then that when I was old enough, strong enough, I would never let another woman suffer that way if I could prevent it." Emma's heart cracked open a little wider. "Your mother, is she—" "She is well, happy. Papa worships the ground she walks on, as he should." Dante's expression softened. "She runs a women's shelter now, actually. For women fleeing domestic violence. Helped over 300 women in the last 10 years. "That's incredible," Emma breathed. "She is incredible," Dante agreed. "And so are you, for walking away. Many women stay, for reasons that are complex and valid. But you chose to leave, to fight back, to say no. That takes immense courage." Emma didn't feel courageous. She felt broken, exhausted, and terrified of what came next. But something in Dante's words, in his steady presence, made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could survive this. "Thank you," she said again, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "For everything. For saving me. For this. Just for seeing me as someone worth saving." Dante's eyes locked with hers, intense and unwavering, Emma, listen to me carefully. You were always worth saving. His treatment of you was never a reflection of your value. It was a reflection of his own brokenness, his own insecurity. He leaned forward slightly. You are worth protecting, worth cherishing, and any man who cannot see that is a fool. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with something Emma couldn't quite name. She should have felt uncomfortable under such scrutiny, but instead she felt seen. Truly seen, maybe for the first time in years. I should let you rest, Dante said, standing. Your room is the second door on the left. There are fresh towels in the bathroom, and anything you need, you have only to ask. Where will you be? My office. He gestured to a door off the main living area. I have some work to attend to, but I will be here if you need anything. Anything at all. Emma nodded, rising on shaky legs. As she passed him heading toward the bedrooms, she paused. Dante? Yes? I'm glad you were there tonight, in that alley. His expression softened. So am I, cara mia. So am I. Emma had expected awkwardness, tension, discomfort. What she'd found instead was surprisingly domestic. Dante worked from home most of the time, she discovered. He took calls in his office in the mornings, always in Italian, his voice a low rumble she could hear through the walls, and emerged for lunch, which he usually cooked himself. He was an excellent cook, it turned out, with a repertoire that extended far beyond the pasta she'd expected. My nonna insisted all her grandchildren learn. He'd explained that first afternoon, sliding a plate of perfectly seared salmon and roasted vegetables in front of her. She said a person who cannot feed themselves is at the mercy of the world. They fell into a routine. Mornings were quiet, each doing their own thing. Emma spent the time applying for new jobs online, using Dante's laptop. She'd been a marketing director at a mid-sized firm, and her resume was strong, but leaving her position so abruptly complicated things. Afternoons, they coexisted in comfortable silence, her reading on the couch, him working at the dining table that doubled as his home workspace. And evenings they talked. Emma learned that Dante was 36, that he'd studied economics at Harvard, that he'd taken over the family business when his stepfather had a heart attack 5 years ago. He loved old movies, film noir especially, and he had a ridiculous collection of vintage records that he played on an honest-to-God record player. Vinyl sounds better, he'd insisted when she'd teased him about it. Warmer, more alive. And Dante learned about her childhood in Vermont, her parents' death, her sister who she hadn't spoken to in 6 months because of Marcus, who'd slowly isolated her from everyone she loved. About her dreams of starting her own marketing consultancy someday, being her own boss. Why don't you? Dante had asked one evening as they sat on his balcony, the city lights twinkling below them. Start my own company? Emma had laughed. That takes capital, clients, connections. I have none of those things. You have skills, Dante had countered, and capital. That can be arranged. Emma had looked at him sharply. I'm not taking your money. Not as charity, as an investment. His gray eyes had been serious. I have several business ventures that could use skilled marketing. You could consult for them, build your portfolio, your reputation. In 6 months, you would have more clients than you could handle. It was tempting, terribly tempting, but Emma had shaken her head. I need to do this on my own. Not because I don't appreciate the offer, but because I need to prove to myself that I can. Dante had studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I understand. But the offer stands. If you change your mind. Now, on the morning of her 4th day in Dante's penthouse, Emma stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Her lip was almost healed, the swelling gone. The bruise on her cheek had faded to a yellowish tint easily covered with makeup. Physically, she was recovering. Emotionally, that was more complicated. She'd had nightmares every night, dreams where Marcus found her, where Dante wasn't there to save her, where she ended up broken and bleeding with no one to help. She'd wake gasping, tears on her cheeks, her heart racing, and every time Dante appeared within minutes. She didn't know how he knew, whether she cried out in her sleep or whether he simply checked on her, but he was always there. He never pushed, never tried to enter her room. He just stood in the doorway and asked if she needed anything. Water, tea, someone to talk to. Last night, she'd said yes to the last one. They'd sat in his living room at 2 a.m, Emma curled into the corner of the couch, Dante in his armchair, and she'd told him everything. Every awful moment of her relationship with Marcus, every time she'd made excuses, every time she'd told herself it would get better. "I feel so stupid," she'd whispered. "I'm an intelligent woman. I have a good job, I'm educated. How did I let this happen?" "Intelligence has nothing to do with it," Dante had said firmly. "Abusers are skilled at what they do. They identify vulnerabilities, exploit them, isolate their victims gradually so the change is imperceptible until it is too late. None of that is your fault. Everyone will think, 'Everyone can go to hell,'" Dante had interrupted, with such vehemence that Emma had actually smiled despite her tears. "Anyone who judges you for being victimized knows nothing of the world and deserves no space in your thoughts." They'd talked until dawn, until the sky outside the windows turned from black to gray to pink. And somewhere in those hours, something had shifted between them. The careful distance Dante had maintained, the walls Emma had kept up, they'd begun to crumble. Now, as Emma emerged from the guest room, she found Dante in the kitchen, making espresso with a complicated machine that looked like it belonged in a coffee shop. "Good morning," he said without turning around. "Did you sleep after we talked?" "A little, a few hours." Emma slid onto one of the bar stools at the kitchen island. "Dante, I've been thinking—" That sounds ominous. But he was smiling as he turned, sliding a tiny cup of espresso toward her. "I need to start looking for an apartment. I can't stay here forever." His smile faded. "You can stay as long as you need." "I know, and I'm grateful, but I need to start rebuilding my life, being independent again." Emma wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "I've got a job interview tomorrow, actually. Marketing director for a tech startup in Cambridge. The salary is good. I could afford a studio apartment somewhere decent." Dante was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. "I see. And this is what you want?" "It's what I need to do, even though you are not ready." Emma's head snapped up. "Excuse me? You are still having nightmares. You still flinch when I move too quickly. You are not sleeping properly, not eating properly." Dante's voice was gentle but firm. "These are not judgments, Kara. They are observations made by someone who cares about your well-being." "Someone who cares?" Emma repeated, her heart suddenly beating faster. "Dante, you've known me for 4 days. And yet I feel I know you better than people I have known for years." He moved around the island, stopping a careful distance from her. Close enough to talk comfortably, far enough not to crowd. "You are strong, intelligent, kind, despite what you have endured. You have a terrible habit of putting sugar in coffee that should only ever be taken black. You read romance novels that make you cry and you're not ashamed of it, and you hum when you cook, even though you do not realize you are doing it." Emma's breath caught. "You've been paying attention." How could I not? Dante's gray eyes were intense, locked on hers. You walk into a room and the light changes. You smile and the world becomes bearable. Do you think I invite every woman I rescue in alleyways to stay in my home? I don't know. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I do not. I have a protocol for such situations, a safe house, trusted staff, financial support until the woman can get on her feet. But with you, he shook his head. From the moment I saw you standing up to that bastardo, blood on your face but fire in your eyes, I knew you were different. Dante, I am not asking you for anything, he said quickly. I know the timing is complicated. I know you are healing from trauma, and the last thing you need is pressure from me or anyone else. But I need you to know." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I need you to know that when you are ready, if you are ever ready, I am here. And not just as a place to stay, but as more, if you want that." Emma's heart was thundering now. This was too fast, too soon. She'd just left an abusive relationship. She should be focusing on herself, on healing, on independence. But looking at Dante, at the careful hope in his eyes, at the way he held himself with such restraint, even though she could sense how much that admission had cost him. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted. "I don't know when I'll be ready, or if—" "Then we wait," Dante said simply. "We take things one day at a time. You stay here, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you choose to. You heal at your own pace, and I—" He smiled, small and somehow vulnerable. "I continue to make you breakfast and bore you with my vinyl collection, and perhaps occasionally manage to make you smile." "You don't bore me," Emma said softly. "You've never bored me." Something flickered in Dante's expression. Relief, maybe, or joy. "Then stay. Please, not forever if you do not wish it, but at least until you are truly ready to face the world again. Let me be your friend, if nothing else." Friend. Was that what they were becoming? Emma thought about the past few days, the easy conversations, the comfortable silences, the way Dante made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. Maybe they were friends. Or maybe they were something more, something still unnamed and fragile and new. "Okay," she heard herself say. "I'll stay. For a while longer." The smile that broke across Dante's face was like sunrise, warm and brilliant and absolutely devastating. "Thank you," he said. "You will not regret this. I promise." And the strange thing was, Emma believed him. Emma laughed as Dante attempted to teach her the proper way to make homemade pasta, flour dusting, his dark hair and somehow smudged across his cheek. "No, like this," he insisted, coming to stand behind her, his hands covering hers as he guided them through the dough. "You must be gentle, but firm, like holding a butterfly. You want to feel it, but not crush it." "That's a terrible metaphor," Emma said, but she was grinning. "Butterflies aren't stretchy." "You are not taking this seriously. I am taking it very seriously." She turned her head to look up at him, and suddenly realized how close he was. Close enough that she could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes, could smell his cologne mixing with the scent of flour and egg. "I just think you're being dramatic about pasta." "Dramatic?" Dante's eyebrows rose. "This is my nonna's recipe, passed down through 4 generations. There is nothing dramatic about honoring tradition." "Your nonna sounds terrifying." "She is. You will meet her next week." Emma froze. "What?" "Sunday dinner," Dante said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "My family wants to meet you." "Dante, I can't—" "You can." He turned her gently to face him, his hands still on her arms. "They know you are staying here. They know why. And they want to welcome you, to make sure you know you have family now, if you want it." Emma's eyes stung with sudden tears. 3 months. 3 months of healing, of therapy sessions with Dr. Chen's recommended counselor, of slowly rebuilding herself. 3 months of learning who she was without Marcus's voice in her head, telling her what to think, what to wear, who to see. 3 months of Dante. He'd kept his word. He hadn't pushed, hadn't pressured. But his feelings had been clear in 1,000 small ways. The way he looked at her over morning coffee, the way his hand would linger when he passed her something, the way his face lit up whenever she entered a room. And Emma's feelings, well, they'd snuck up on her slowly, like dawn breaking. She'd tried to resist them, tried to tell herself it was too soon, that she was confusing gratitude with affection, safety with love. But it wasn't gratitude that made her heart race when Dante smiled. It wasn't safety that made her lean into his space, seeking his warmth. And it wasn't confusion that made her dream of him at night. Not nightmares anymore, but dreams of his hands in her hair, his lips on hers, his body pressed against hers. "I'm scared," she admitted now, her voice barely audible. "Of my family? I promise they are mostly harmless." "Of this," Emma gestured between them. "Of us. Of what I'm feeling. Because I'm feeling something, Dante, and I don't know if it's real or if I'm just—" He kissed her. One moment they were standing in his kitchen, flour-covered and talking, and the next his mouth was on hers, gentle but sure, one hand cupping her face like she was something precious, while the other remained on her arm, holding her steady. It was nothing like kissing Marcus had been. There was no demand, no aggression. Just warmth and tenderness, and a barely restrained passion that made Emma's knees weak. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark, his breathing slightly uneven. "It is real," he said, his Italian accent thicker than usual. "Whatever you are feeling, cara mia, it is real. And whatever I am feeling, this thing that makes me want to tear the world apart for you, that makes me think of you every moment of every day, that is real too. Dante, I love you," he said, the words simple and devastating. "I know it is fast. I know you may not be ready to hear it. But I cannot keep it inside anymore. I love you, Emma. Not because I saved you, not because you needed protection. I love you because you are brave and kind and brilliant. I love the way you argue with me about my terrible metaphors. I love how you leave your coffee cup in a different place every morning, like you are determined to create chaos in my organized life. I love your strength, your vulnerability, your terrible taste in television shows." "My taste in television is not terrible," Emma interrupted, but she was laughing through tears now. "And I love your smile," Dante finished, his thumb wiping away the tear that had escaped down her cheek. "That smile that tells me you are healing, that you are finding yourself again. That smile that lights up my entire world." Emma's heart felt like it might burst. "I love you too," she whispered, and watched his face transform with joy. "I've been trying not to. Trying to tell myself it's too soon, but I can't help it. You make me feel safe and seen and valued, and I love you for it. I love you for everything you are." This time, when he kissed her, she kissed him back, her arms winding around his neck, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, became less gentle, and more urgent. 3 months of restraint finally breaking like a dam. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Not as my guest, but as mine. Be mine, Emma. Let me be yours." "Yes," Emma breathed, and felt the last piece of her broken heart finally click into place. Yes to all of it. 6 months later, Valentino Family Vineyard, Tuscany. The setting sun painted the Tuscan hills in shades of gold and amber as Emma stood on the terrace of Dante's family vineyard, watching the guests mingle below. The wedding, her wedding, had been perfect. Small, intimate, just family and close friends gathered to watch her marry the man who'd saved her life in more ways than one. She wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated, with her honey blonde hair swept up in a loose bun. Diamond earrings, Dante's wedding gift to her, sparkled in her ears. She should have felt nervous, anxious. Instead, she felt peaceful, happy, complete. "There you are," Dante's voice came from behind her, and then his arms were around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "Hiding from your own wedding reception, Mrs. Valentino." Emma smiled, leaning into him. Not hiding, just taking a moment to appreciate how much has changed. His lips brushed her temple. "A year ago, you were in an alley, terrified and hurt. And now? Now I'm in Tuscany, married to the most wonderful man I've ever met." She turned in his arms to face him. "It still doesn't feel real sometimes." Shall I pinch you to prove it is? His eyes sparkled with mischief. Don't you dare. But she was laughing as she said it. Dante's expression grew serious, his hand coming up to cup her face. I meant what I said in my vows, Emma. You have made me whole in ways I did not know I was broken. You have given me purpose beyond the business, beyond the obligations of my name. You have given me love, real and true and beautiful. You saved me, Emma said softly, her hand covering his. In that alley, yes, but every day since then, too. You saved me from thinking I didn't deserve love, from believing I was broken beyond repair. You were never broken, cara mia. You were healing. There is a difference. Below them, someone called out for the bride and groom. The first dance would be starting soon, then dinner, then all the wonderful chaos of a wedding celebration. But for this moment, they stood together as the sun set over the Italian countryside, two people who'd found each other in the darkest of circumstances and built something beautiful from the ashes of pain. Ready to go back? Dante asked, offering his arm. Emma took it, smiling up at the man who'd become her everything, her protector, her partner, her love. Ready, she said, for this, and for everything that comes after. As they walked back toward their celebration, toward their future, Emma sent a silent thank you to whatever force had put Dante in that alley on that rainy night. She'd lost so much in her life, her parents, her independence, almost her sense of self. But she'd found something infinitely more precious in return. Love. Real, honest, healing love that asked for nothing but gave everything. And as Dante pulled her into his arms for their first dance as husband and wife, as the Tuscan stars began to appear overhead and their loved ones cheered around them, Emma finally understood what it meant to be truly, completely, joyfully free.